Hello and welcome to the cake tip. Today we're going to be making a beautiful Victoria sponge. This is perfect for celebrations like Easter, etc. So we're going to begin with some almond milk, or you can use cashew milk, any nut milk of your choice. We're then going to add some apple cider vinegar to this. If you've got the apple cider vinegar with the mother, that's fantastic. We're going to add a tablespoon of this so that it curdles and becomes a little bit like buttermilk. So we're going to pop this to one side and allow it to sit for a little while to curdle. I will put a list of all the ingredients, etc. underneath the video in the description. So next we're going to need our ingredients to make the base of our cake. So we're going to start off with some gluten-free self-raising flour. We're also going to need some xylitol. Now you can use stevia if you wish, or sugar if you're not making it sugar-free. You just need to allow the measurements to be slightly different. We're also going to use some vegan butter, some vanilla extract, some gluten-free baking powder, and I'm going to use some beetroot powder to colour the cake a slight pink because I'm making it for Easter. But if you don't have any beetroot powder, that's perfectly fine. You can use food colouring. Okay, so we're going to pop all of this into a mixing bowl, and you can do this by hand or you can choose to do this in a standalone mixer. So we're going to pop all of our ingredients into the bowl. This doesn't need to be in any particular order. It's fine to put whichever ingredients you want to in first of all. So that's our gluten-free self-raising flour going in. And next of all, we're going to be popping in our beetroot powder. Now, remember, if you don't have any beetroot powder, because it might not be easy to find, you can use food colouring as long as it's vegan and gluten-free. So pop all that in there. The next thing we're going to be using is our vegan butter. Make sure this is at room temperature also. And then we're going to be adding our gluten-free baking powder. Now, if you are vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, keto, or any of those, I do videos for all different types of dietary restrictions. So please remember to subscribe and click the notification button. The last thing we're going to put into this mix at the moment is going to be our vanilla extract, which also needs to be gluten-free as well. Once you have all of your ingredients in the bowl, you're actually going to pop it to one side to prepare your tins. You're going to need a couple of 9-inch round tins, and you're going to need to line these with parchment baking paper so that the sponge doesn't stick to the bottom. Because this type of sponge is quite flimsy, when you turn it out, you don't want it to break. Now you can use silicone or you can use metal tins, whichever you have, it's perfectly fine. So pop them to one side. Now we are going to pour our nut milk into the mix that we've already put into our bowl. So pour that in, make sure it's all in. And once we have all of this in the bowl, we're then going to place it into the standalone mixer to mix. Or if you're doing this by hand, you can start to proceed to do this by hand. When it is in the standalone mixer, don't over mix it because you need to make sure that you allow enough air within the mix. You'll know when your mix is right because it should look like this. So we've got a lovely pink ready for Easter. But remember, if you don't want to colour this sponge, that's perfectly fine. So we're now going to pour this into our tins. Now you want to try and equal out the amount you put in each tin so that you get even layers. It's not always possible to get it exactly the same, but you want to be somewhere near. This sponge cake mix is actually brilliant for creating rainbow cakes if you wanted to do something like that as a novelty, especially as everyone's inside at the moment. It actually does layer up lovely to do that. Once you have all of your mix in your tins, you're now just going to use a spatula to spread them to the edge. We're not actually going to tap these on the side to flatten them out because we want to make sure we keep enough air into them. So once they're smoothed out to the edge, we're then going to pop them in a preheated oven for roughly 25 to 30 minutes. And you will know when they're ready because they'll spring back to the touch when it's time to take them out. Now, whilst our cakes are baking, we're going to make our buttercream. So we need some vegan butter, so we need some vanilla extract and some xylitol as well. Now the xylitol is quite grainy, it's a little bit more like cane sugar, but we need it to be like icing sugar. So we're going to use a food processor. So we're going to pop all of that into there, and then we're literally going to pop it into the food processor until it becomes like a powder, just like icing sugar. So this is the result you're looking for. It's nice and powdery and it will make a fantastic buttercream. So grab a hold of your standalone mixing bowl, or if you're doing this by hand, you're probably going to need a whisk or an electric whisk. So pop your butter in. And then your icing sugar or equivalent xylitol. Now, if you're using stevia in the cake, you can't really use this for the buttercream. It does give it a very unusual taste. So either sugar or xylitol. And we're also going to add some vanilla extract to this as well, remembering to make it sure that it's gluten-free. So once you have all of that in the bowl, you're going to place this into your standalone mixer, and it will take a fair amount of time to come together, but it'll be lovely and creamy when it does. I would say roughly about 3 to 4 minutes before it's ready. When our cakes are ready to come out the oven, you're going to place them onto a wire rack to begin with to cool in their tins. You need them to cool for roughly about 5 to 10 minutes before you turn them out onto the rack. Once they're cool enough, turn them out onto the rack to cool completely before you go ahead to icing and filling your cake. So once your buttercream's ready, this is exactly what it should look like, lovely and creamy, and it does really look like normal buttercream. So now for how we're going to decorate. So we're going to put a couple of spoonfuls into another bowl so that we can colour this pink. This is just so that we can give it the buttercream a little bit of a two-tone colouring, as I said before, because I'm doing this for Easter. If you don't want to two-tone colour this, or you want to do it more than that, that's perfectly fine. You can use vegan food colours to do this, or if you're lucky enough to have different fruit powders, you can use that. So I'm using the beetroot powder to colour this pink for my cake. I'm literally just going to use a couple of teaspoons worth just to colour it enough so that you can see a light pink. So you're just going to stir this in until it's fully come together and it looks beautifully pink. So now our buttercream is a lovely pink. We're now going to proceed to pop it into an icing bag. I'm actually using a star tip to do this, just for the shaping that I want to pipe on the cake. I'm also grabbing myself a glass to be able to prop it up into for putting the two different colours of buttercream into the bag. So first of all, I'm going to grab my other buttercream and I'm going to take a spoonful of the pink colouring and I'm going to pop it as far down as I can on one side of the icing bag. And on the other side, I shall be putting the white buttercream. This is to allow it to have a two-tone colouring when we're piping it onto the cake and in the cake. So you want to use about 3/4 of the pink, and then you need to move on to your white and push that down also into the other side of the piping bag. So as you can see, you now have two different colours. It's like a Neapolitan ice cream without the chocolate. Now keep filling your bag until you have used up all of your buttercream on either side, and you are then ready to proceed to fill your cake. Don't also be scared to pile your buttercream up slightly on top, because once you pull the bag over the top, you'll be able to combine it all into the bag. And we're also going to shake this down as well so that it goes right to the bottom, so that when we come to piping, we don't have any air bubbles in there. So pull it right up to the top, move your glass away, and then shake your bag to allow all of the buttercream to go right to the bottom. As you can see, it's come right to the bottom and it's two-tone on either side. Now you're just going to twist the top of your bag and you're going to leave it without cutting the tip and pop it back into your glass so that we can now carry on and fill the cake with the jam and the buttercream. So you're going to start off with your cake on a plate, and I've actually got some homemade jam here. And the reason I've used homemade jam is because here in Australia you find it very difficult to find sugar-free jam, so I've made my own. But if you can get hold of sugar-free jam, then you can buy it from the supermarket by all means. So we're going to pop a couple of spoonfuls into the middle of the sponge. And when we've got the desired amount that we'd like to have, we're then going to use our spoon to push all of the jam around to the edges of the sponge cake. Remembering that this is only one layer that we're dealing with at the moment, because the other layer will top the rest of our cake. When you're happy that all of the jam has gone right to the edges of the cake, we're then going to move on to pipe our buttercream. Now, first of all, we need to cut the icing bag at the bottom over the top of the tip. So once we've moved the tip all the way to the bottom, and we know roughly where we want to cut it, we're just going to cut the plastic, and then we shall move our tip back down into the hole ready for piping. Don't worry if you have a little bit that come off around the edge, you can just pop that into the bowl. So you're going to twist the top of your bag, allowing you to have a certain amount of control over your bag with your piping. Now you may find you get a little bit of buttercream squeezing out the top, but that's perfectly fine, just pop that into a bowl. So once you've got quite a bit of control on there, you're going to start by making little roses all the way around the outside. Now the reason that you're going to be doing that is so that when you come to put in the top layer on, you've got an equal amount around the outside and it looks nice and level and quite pretty as well. Continue this process until you've covered the whole of the bottom layer of the sponge. Now the bottom of the cake is fully covered. You can see we have a little bit of buttercream left. Pop that to the side, and now we're going to pop our lid on our cake. So that's the other layer of your sponge cake. You're going to place that over the top and just gently press down to make sure that it's nice and level, but not too much because you don't want to push too hard on that buttercream. Now we're going to decorate the top. So once again, tighten your bag to gain control, and you're going to start off by doing a large rose in the centre, if you choose to do this decoration, that is. And then we're going to go corner to corner so that we end up with equal swirls around the top of the cake for decoration. Once you've finished your decoration, your cake is then ready to serve. This cake will keep fine on the worktop for roughly 2 to 3 days. Thanks for watching this video, and remember to subscribe for future videos.